All right, welcome back everyone for another deep dive. Today we're going deep on something that might sound a little, well, a little dry.
Yeah, a little bit.
An internal audit evaluation improvement plan.
Oh, exciting.
But stick with us. This is where things get really interesting. We've
Yeah.
got the actual plan document right here, like always.
Primary source.
Primary source. And we're going to break it down.
Extract the insights.
Exactly. Think of it like this, okay? Someone came in, gave this organization a thorough examination, found some, well, let's just say they found some cracks in the foundation.
Ooh.
And this document we're looking at, this is their blueprint. It's their roadmap to fix it.
And you know what's fascinating about these blueprints, it's not just a checklist.
Right.
It shows you, it really reveals a lot about an organization.
Oh, yeah.
Their values, their priorities,
Yeah,
even,
thanks.
sometimes their vulnerabilities.
So let's start from the beginning. The audit, it uncovered 5 key areas of concern. And these are, well, they're pretty revealing.
Okay, lay it on me.
All right, first up, documentation inconsistencies.
Oh.
Now, this isn't just about like misplaced files or anything like that.
Right.
Imagine you're trying to, I don't know, onboard a new employee
Yeah.
or respond to some big regulatory inquiry, but you don't have clear process documentation.
It's a mess.
A mess.
Total recipe for disaster. Inefficiency, errors,
Yeah.
legal headaches potentially.
Big time.
Especially, well, I mean, it really depends on the work they do.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, inconsistent documentation, that can be a sign of a safety issue or a compliance issue,
Yeah.
especially in like a highly regulated industry.
High stakes. Okay, so that's one, strike one.
Ooh.
Next up, we've got lack of segregation of duties.
Oh, this is the one I was worried about.
Yeah, you mentioned this earlier that you were concerned about potential fraud risks.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is a big red flag.
Huge red flag. If one person has too much control over a process, like let's say they can authorize payments and then process the payments,
Uh-oh.
that's a recipe for problems,
Yeah.
intentional or not.
Oh, for sure.
It's like leaving the vault door wide open.
Yikes. All right, finding number 3, outdated policies.
Okay.
Now, this might seem minor on the surface,
Yeah,
but rules, I mean, they're only effective if they're up to date.
it's true. If they reflect the current reality.
Right. It's like trying to drive through, I don't know, a busy intersection using traffic laws from the 1950s.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Outdated policies, yeah.
Well,
Not only inefficient, but also
risky.
legal and reputational risks.
Yeah, big time.
Big time.
Okay, so outdated policies. Strike 3. What's next?
Okay, finding number 4, and this is a big one. Weak risk monitoring.
Ooh.
Okay, every organization, they face risks,
Right, of course.
but without a system to identify and manage those risks proactively, I mean, come on, it's like sailing through a storm with no radar.
So you're not just reacting to problems as they happen. You're anticipating, you're putting things in place to head them off.
Exactly. You need a strong risk management framework.
Right.
It's essential for making informed decisions, making sure the organization is stable for the long term.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
And finally, insufficient training.
Okay.
Now, I mean, this one seems kind of obvious.
Right.
You need to train people to do their jobs well.
Right.
But it's more than that, isn't it?
It is. It really is. Insufficient training
Yeah.
can lead to low morale. People might quit more often.
Oh, yeah.
It can create a culture of, well, I don't want to say mediocrity, but
Sure.
if people don't feel like they can do their jobs well, they don't feel supported. It
Yeah.
affects their morale. It affects their productivity.
Yeah,
It just
natural.
ripples through the whole organization.
A lot of frustration probably and a lot of costly mistakes.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, okay, we've got our 5 problem areas.
The 5 big ones.
It's, well, it's a pretty clear picture, isn't it?
It is. It gives us a glimpse into some of the cracks, I would say, in this organization's foundation.
Okay.
But the real question is, how are they going to fix it?
Yeah.
What are they going to do about it? Let's look at this action plan table and see what they're proposing. All right, so we just took a look at some pretty serious findings from this internal audit.
Yeah, kind of eye-opening.
But now we're going to get into the good stuff,
The solutions.
the solutions. And remember, this isn't just some theory here. This is an actual roadmap for change.
And not just any roadmap. We're talking deadlines, responsibilities, concrete ways to measure success. They put it all in this action plan table.
Yeah, it's actually pretty impressive how specific they get. For each finding, they outline what they're going to do about it, who's in charge of it,
Yep.
when it needs to be done by, and how they'll know if it worked.
Okay, so let's get specific. For those documentation inconsistencies, what's the game plan?
Well, they're aiming for 100% of processes documented and validated
Wow,
within 2 months.
that's ambitious.
And they've put the process management team in charge of it,
Makes sense.
which is crucial because, well, without someone owning these kinds of initiatives,
Yeah.
they tend to fizzle out.
They lose steam.
Exactly.
So it's like they're saying, we're not messing around, we're putting our best people on this, and we need results.
Yeah. And not just speed. It's got to be thorough. They're not just like throwing some documents together.
Right.
They want them validated.
So a rigorous review, a real approval process.
Exactly.
Okay, so documentation, that's a top priority for sure. What about that lack of segregation of duties, the vault door left open situation?
Right. So they're implementing a whole new system of checks and balances.
Okay.
So, for example, separating who can authorize payments from who can process them.
No more single points of failure.
Exactly. And, it's not just about preventing fraud. It's about overall accountability, reducing those errors,
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
That's reassuring, especially given what you were saying earlier about the risks there. Sounds like they're taking it seriously.
They are. Okay, so what's next? Outdated policies. What are they going to do about those?
Yeah, what's the plan of attack there?
They're going to review all of their policies, every single one, with the goal of updating them, replacing them, whatever they got to do to make sure they're aligned with current regulations and best practices.
That's a big undertaking.
Yeah, but they're involving stakeholders from all across the organization.
Smart.
Yeah.
So it's not just a top-down rewrite. They're getting input from the people who actually use these policies day to day.
Exactly. I mean, that's just smart. It ensures buy-in from the people who have to use them.
Makes sense.
But also, you're tapping into their expertise.
Oh, for sure.
It's a much more collaborative way to develop policies.
I like it. Okay, so they're tackling documentation, they're segregating duties, they're updating those old policies. What about that sailing through a storm without a radar problem, that weak risk monitoring?
Right. So they're implementing, drumroll please, a formal risk management framework,
Nice.
which means they're establishing a risk register to identify and assess risks.
Okay.
They're going to develop mitigation strategies, assign responsibility for monitoring those risks, reporting on them, the whole 9 yards.
So a really systematic way to, spot those icebergs before they hit the ship.
Precisely. And it's not just a one-time thing. This is about building risk management into everything they do, how they make decisions going forward.
Love it. Okay, last but not least, that insufficient training. What's the remedy for that one?
They're rolling out a comprehensive training program specifically designed to address all the gaps that the audit identified.
Okay, good.
And it's not just about, technical skills.
Yeah.
They're incorporating ethics, compliance, really getting into the organization's values.
So they're investing in their people, not just processes.
Yes, exactly. They're trying to create a culture of,
Continuous learning, continuous improvement.
Yes. And they're going to measure how effective the training is with assessments, surveys, all that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So that they can fine-tune things along the way and make sure they're getting a return on their investment.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the plan, we've got the timeline. What about, the oversight? Who's making sure all this stuff actually gets done?
They've got a pretty robust monitoring and tracking process.
Okay.
So those who are responsible, they have to submit progress reports every month.
Okay.
And then a special oversight committee, they review those reports.
So it's not just set it and forget it.
No, they've got accountability built in, regular checkpoints, got to make sure things are actually moving forward.
Love that.
And every quarter, they're going to have big review meetings to evaluate the overall progress, make any adjustments to the plan if they need to.
So it's dynamic, not static.
Right.
They're willing to adjust based on what they learn as they go.
Exactly. The feedback loop, that's critical. But the key question is, what are they going to do with the data they get?
Yeah, will they actually act on it?
Exactly. Will they be willing to make tough decisions if things aren't working?
That's the real test. I mean, it's easy to make a plan,
Oh, yeah.
sticking to it,
Yeah.
and things get tough.
That's the real challenge. And that brings us to, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
The key performance indicators, the KPIs.
Right.
These are the metrics that are really going to tell us if the plan is working, if the organization is,
Getting healthier.
Exactly.
So what are they measuring? What's going to tell them if this whole thing is a success?
Okay, well, they've picked a mix of quantitative and qualitative indicators. They want to get a really comprehensive view of how things are progressing. So they're tracking things like the percentage of audit findings that have been addressed.
So that's a good sign, right? If they're closing those gaps, taking care of those problems.
Yeah, absolutely. But, they're also tracking the time, how long it takes to implement those corrective actions,
Uh,
which, that tells us how efficient they are, how agile they are.
Right, so a short time frame means they're moving quickly, decisively.
Exactly. Longer delays, well, that might point to some roadblocks, maybe resistance to change, something like that.
Interesting. So it's not just about what they do, but how fast they do it.
Exactly. And they're not just focused on the internal stuff either.
No.
They're measuring how compliant they are with external regulations.
Okay, makes sense.
So, are the changes actually making their control environment stronger? That's super important for their reputation, avoiding those legal issues.
Right, right. It's not just about checking boxes, it's about operating ethically responsibly.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
to get a sense of, how all this is impacting the people, they're looking at staff satisfaction with the training.
Okay, so are employees feeling supported through all this?
Mm,
Do they feel like this training is actually helping them do their jobs better?
yeah. You can have the best plan in the world, but if the people implementing it aren't happy, if they feel overwhelmed, it's not going to work.
Yeah. No buy-in, no success.
Exactly. Employee buy-in is critical. Okay, so we've covered the what and the how.
The nuts and bolts.
Right, the nuts and bolts of the improvement plan.
But I think the bigger question is the why.
Ooh, good question.
Why are they going to all this trouble?
Huh.
What does it say about their, I don't know, their values, their priorities?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think this plan, it shows a deep commitment, not just to fixing problems, but creating a culture of continuous improvement.
I like that.
They're not settling for, okay, this is good enough.
They want to be better.
They want to be better.
You're not afraid to grow.
It's like they see this audit not as a punishment, but as an opportunity.
To learn and grow.
Exactly. They're taking that feedback, even if it's hard to hear.
And they're using it to actually make positive changes.
It's impressive. A lot of organizations, they don't have that level of humility.
Or self-awareness.
Yeah.
And they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah. They're
Huh.
putting in the time, the money, the resources. They're not just talking about it.
They're taking action. Which says a lot about their leadership, right?
Oh, absolutely. They're willing to invest in the long-term health of the organization, even if it means some short-term costs, maybe some disruptions.
So thinking about all this, does this change how you see this organization?
It definitely gives us a more complete picture.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw their weaknesses, sure, but we also saw how willing they are to face those weaknesses and actually do something about them.
It makes you wonder, are they going to pull it off?
Yeah.
Will they actually achieve what they set out to do?
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Only time will tell.
But, the fact that they're even trying, that they're putting this much effort into it, that's a good sign. It suggests they're on the right path.
It's a good reminder that no organization is perfect.
Yeah.
There's always room for improvement.
Always.
And being willing to embrace change, well, that's often the key to succeeding in the long run.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So that wraps up our deep dive into this internal audit evaluation improvement plan.
Hopefully you found it as interesting as we did.
And hopefully it gave you some food for thought, something to think about, and maybe even apply to your own work or, I don't know, your own life.
Yeah. Remember, continuous improvement, it's a journey. It's not a destination, but it's a journey worth taking.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We'll see you next time.